Rinse and repeat. Another game in the Dome yields another loss for Syracuse men's basketball. The Orange fall to the Tar Heels 88-82 in what seems like a string of disappointments for SU. The Orange trailed the whole game, and now with mere weeks to go in the season for the Orange, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's much hope left. We'll break it all down on Orange Press Pass. It starts right now. Welcome into our CitrusTV studio. Luke Burgess alongside Rahill, Jaiswal, Sydney Chan breaking down a Syracuse 88-82 loss to UNC inside the Dome. The Orange fall again in the ACC in what seems like just a string now of disappointments. Syracuse simply has not been able to overcome basically any opponent over the last few months. Guys, we'll come right to you. Your first thoughts, Rahill, from another loss in the ACC.
Man, can the season just be over with? Can the season just end? I mean, it is one long vomit ride. That is the exact words that I'm going to describe for this season. I mean, it's been awful, Sydney. This is the worst season Syracuse basketball is playing, and it's going to end up being the worst season since way back in the 60s before Jim Boeheim ends. I think every single person, every single fan is hoping for the end.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of Syracuse defense.
Oh, yeah.
Where is our defense? You know, we all saw Coach Autry at the end of the Miami game being so disappointed with his team. He was like, okay, they gave up 90 points. We weren't playing on the other side of the court. And again, Syracuse gives up nearly 90 points again. You would have hoped that something would have changed.
Nope.
There would have been a switch. But again, defense was non-existent.
Well, despite the fact that Syracuse coming off of a loss to the worst team in all of the ACC against Miami back on Tuesday, when a brand like UNC comes into the Dome, the vibes are always high. Syracuse trying to pick up what could be considered a coveted win today in the Dome. The Orange coming off that loss back on Tuesday, like we mentioned, and trying to just garner any form of momentum that they could. It was a big day for Eddie Lampkin. He got things going early on. See him working in the low post. He looked a lot more comfortable today. Not as many turnovers. You see him tie the game at 2 early. That would be one of 6 ties in this game. And despite the fact that the game was tied a whole bunch, the Orange never led, and that's because of stuff like this. Turnovers. Ian Jackson on the other end slams it home. He extended the lead out to a 10-8 lead at the time. On the other end, some nice passing inside from Jaquan Carlos. Peter Majstorovic had a good game today. Played a ton again. Seeing more of a role from these bench guys who just haven't factored in as much earlier in the season. They're getting some playing time down the stretch, and R.J. Davis late in the half makes a nice little 2-point shot right from the line. And then Ian Jackson, he was just on fire today. UNC really on fire throughout the duration of that first half, shooting almost 50% from downtown. Really good numbers, but once again, it's not uncharacteristic from teams that have played the Orange. It seems like every single week, teams having their best 3-point shooting percentage of the season. And you see the lead there at half for the Tar Heels, 8 points. The Orange would make it a little bit closer in the second half, but it was not due to plays like this. An alley-oop slam on the other side. Lubin finishes it off, 44-36 the lead for the Tar Heels. A couple more nice plays from Eddie Lampkin, though. One of the things that he struggled with in the post, just his steps really looking coordinated. He looked coordinated today. Made a couple of really nice finesse plays. On the other end, offensive rebounding for the Tar Heels, and they pay off. R.J. Davis drills a 3 on the bounce. Second time he drilled a 3 on the bounce in this game, and just getting a little bit lucky, but that's what happens when you have opportunity. On the other end, J.J. Starling, he just went into takeover mode. Only 2 points in that first half. He finished with 22, and a lot of them came on just ISO ball plays, a lot of what we've gotten used to seeing. On the other end, Jalen Withers finishes off. He had a career day, 19 points for him, 3 of 4 from deep, 70 from the field. Elliot Cadeau finishing things off, kind of puts the stamp on it. 84-80 after that one. You see the final score right there, 88-82. The Tar Heels finish things off. Guys, Syracuse was in this game a bunch, like we mentioned, 6 ties, but the Orange could just never pull away.
Yeah, mainly because in the first half they started so slow because J.J. Starling didn't get it going, picked it up in the second half, but overall, Syracuse can get back into games, Luke, but they just can't close the gap enough to come out with victories.
Yeah, JJ only scored 2 points in the first half, which was crazy. A lot of other players had to step up, like Eddie Lampkin, but it just wasn't enough. And like you said, Rahill, towards the end, maybe there was close, but eventually couldn't do it.
We're joined now by a reporter from inside the Dome, Carson Fowler, who had coverage today for CitrusTV of this clash in the ACC. Carson, so happy to be joined alongside you. Thanks for joining us this evening. I want to start by talking about those ties that we talked about, because there were 6 of them today, but Syracuse never led in this game. So despite the fact that the game was knotted up a bunch, what prohibited this SU squad from pulling away and actually establishing a little bit of tempo and pace?
Yeah, Luke, it's a great question because I don't think there's a great answer. We asked Autry after the game, why can't Syracuse close out some of these close games? You know, they had it within a score with less than a minute left, and you mentioned some of those ties. They were tied with 9.5 left. He said his staff just simply has to be better. But again, I don't really have a great answer for you. Eddie Lampkin said similar things. He said we just got to figure things out on our end. But right now, Syracuse struggling to pick up wins, and in close games like this, with just 5 games left in the ACC, you're at that 15 spot right above missing the ACC tournament. You got to win these games if you want to play in March.
Hey, Carson, good to see you. J.J. Starling was mute the first half. 2 points, no made field goals, but the second half started to find his rhythm, ended up scoring 20, what allowed him to be so effective in the final 20 minutes.
Yeah, Rahill, another good question. JJ, non-existent in the first half, just 2 points, but he only logged 9 minutes. He had 2 shots. I heard recently that he might have re-injured his wrist, but obviously that didn't seem to be a factor in the second half. He had 20 of his 22 points in the second half. He played really selfish basketball, honestly, but it was really efficient and effective for Syracuse up until that last possession when, the Tar Heel defense forced him to give it up, and he gave it to Kyle Cuff, who just took an ill-advised 3-point attempt, and obviously they didn't convert, and that ended up being the game. But JJ, another big game for him, and they're going to need him to play big games going forward again if they want to play in March.
Hey Carson, how's it going? UNC had one of its best 3-point performances so far this season, and Syracuse tried to bring out its zone defense, but it didn't really seem to be working. How was UNC able to break past that zone defense?
Yeah, City, you would have thought this would have been a good defensive scheme for Syracuse. North Carolina, among the worst teams in the ACC when it comes to shooting the 3 ball. They shoot at about 32% as a team, but tonight they were on fire. 13 of 28 from downtown, 46%. One of their best shooting performances this year. Hubert Davis gave a lot of credit to his guards, especially Elliot Cadeau, for getting penetration, drawing the double team, and then knocking it out to the outside, and ultimately them knocking down shots. They just, Syracuse just couldn't get a stop on the other end, and North Carolina took advantage of that 2-3 zone, which we haven't really seen as much since Adrian Autry took over as head coach from Jim Boeheim.
Carson, fantastic work as always. We appreciate the time, man. I hope you brought your snowshoes to the Dome today because we got a couple inches outside. I don't know what it was like when you got there, but certainly not good weather outside. All right, when we come back here on Orange Press Pass, we're going to give a little bit more analysis, break this one down as we get further and further into ACC play and the end of ACC play. It's all coming up here on Orange Press Pass. Welcome back into our CitrusTV studio. Luke Burgess joined alongside Rahill, Jaiswal, Sydney Chan, breaking down Syracuse's 88-82 loss today in the Dome to the Tar Heels. Going to jump into some of our topics here. Talking about UNC, they were phenomenal today from beyond the arc. 46%, one of their best three-point shooting percentages all season. This is a team that hasn't particularly been good from beyond the arc. Guys, what went so well today, Rahill, for this team?
Well, yeah, you talk about it. I mean, UNC ranked about bottom 6 in the ACC when it came to shooting percentage. They shot 32% from beyond the arc, but mainly it was the zone. The best way to beat the zone, Sydney, is you shoot over the top of it. That's exactly what UNC did, cooking Syracuse in the zone. And Syracuse doesn't run the zone properly because most of the guys on this team have never seen a 2-3 zone. So
no, exactly.
it was a disaster.
That was a big concern coming into this game. Was Syracuse going to be able to actually protect their field? And as we were watching the game, we were wondering, all three of us, why Syracuse was running their zone and not maybe doing man-on-man defense. That could have been working better for them.
Yeah, certainly the Tar Heels absolutely draining shots from beyond the arc pretty much the entire game. That was something the Orange could never really figure out defensively. On the other end, let's talk about the bench for Syracuse because it really was not good today. And that's been one of their strengths at times this year. You've seen some good performances from Lucas Taylor. You've seen some good work from Jair Davis before he was starting. Now he's become a regular starter with Donnie Freeman's injury. But the disparity between these two teams today was huge. UNC really outclassed Syracuse with the extra men on the floor.
Absolutely. UNC scored 34 off of their bench, Syracuse only 15. And I mean, if we break it down a little bit more, specifically by halves, Syracuse's bench only 11 points in that first half, a sweet 3 from Chris Bell, 6 from Peter Majstorovic, 2 from Naheem McLeod. But then second half, oh no, it goes downhill even more, if that's even possible. Jaquan Carlos just with 3 points, and Majstorovic with just 1 single free throw.
Yeah. It was bad, and that's kind of been some of the main issues with this Syracuse team. A lot of people have said they don't have the depth to compete in what is already an awfully weak ACC conference. And yeah, they've had their stretches where they've had a couple of good games, but Kyle Cuff 0 for 4. Chris Bell has been absolutely putrid this year. He might as well change his profession to a bricklayer because he cannot find that shot. It's
some harsh words.
It has been awful, but this has been kind of a summary of Syracuse's season, Luke. I mean, they got some good looks, especially the bench, but nothing falling.
One of the guys you don't even see right there, Kyle Cuff, who's actually been one of the more consistent guys off the bench this year, right? But it's just been a rotation of faces. None of them have really stuck. And that's kind of been one of the bugaboos for Syracuse. There's no one guy off the bench. There's no clear six-man on this team that you can go to when you need extra points. And today, things got a little bit better in the second half. You see the final scoreline, SU loses by 6. They were down 8 at the half. Mainly J.J. Starling that got going in the second half for Hill. But this game certainly, Syracuse looked better, I want to say, in the second half. I don't know. What do you think?
I would say they definitely looked a little better. But I think, again, it's a good summary of this season in that, you know, when J.J. Starling plays well, this offense can look somewhat competent. When J.J. Starling does not play well, there's really no other person on this offense that can create their own shot. You think about these other guys. I mean, Jair Davis can get to the low post. Eddie Lampkin can be physical. But players like Chris Bell, Lucas Taylor, they rely on J.J. Starling to get them open shots. And so when he is not aggressive, the space is not there.
No, absolutely. Even though UNC still held off Syracuse, and Syracuse did end up scoring 48 points in that second half compared to their only 34 first half production, it was very much discontinuous. UNC had a bunch of great quick passes around the arc that got those quick three-point shots and helped them rack up those points really quickly, but Syracuse produced so many turnovers and just weren't super consistent together as a unit.
Well, it's time for our OPP Player of the Game, and it goes to a guy who put in the hustle work. That's what I want to talk about today, because these are two teams in the ACC, both top 10 in wins all time, both of them having down years. Jalen Withers really put in a shift today, had his best game of the season. 19 points, 70% shooting, 3 for 4 from downtown. And how about this? 6 boards, too. A guy crashing the glass when his team needed it. He picks up a big win. The Tar Heels are still in this thing. If they can win 5 of their last 6, they play Duke every other game. Very much winnable for this squad. And a team that's trying to get into March, if they can go on a little bit of a run in the ACC tournament. Jalen Withers putting in a shift and earning your Orange Press Pass Player of the Game. All right, when we come back, we'll get our debate on. Talking about a slow start for the Cuse. They didn't have a good first half, went down again. It's all coming up on the other side of this break here on Orange Press Pass.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back into our CitrusTV studio. Luke Burgess, Rahill, Jaiswal, Sydney Chan alongside you, breaking down Syracuse's loss to North Carolina. But this game, certainly not the only thing going on today. Our OPP production team was put in an absolute shift. Let's take a look at some of the other scores from around the hill. Start off with that Syracuse men's lacrosse game. The Orange in a top 10 battle, finally looking to beat Maryland for the first time in 7 tries, guys. It didn't happen.
Real disappointment. I mean, Syracuse, Luke, you talked about, has really struggled with Maryland in the past. You felt like this was the game to do it, but what's new? Syracuse cannot play in the cold, rainy weather. Maybe the Dome has some sort of impact.
How about Syracuse ice hockey, Sydney? Ending the season on a win. They've been on a hot stretch. Only 1 loss in their last 7, I want to say.
I mean, that's great for this team who wants to get more well-known, more popularity, and it's great to see that they're finishing off their season strong.
The Orange women's basketball team as well, back in action on Sunday. Take a look around the rest of the NCAA. It was a great day for hoops, particularly Wisconsin taking down number 7 Purdue, a top 10 team falling on home court. That's a big one.
Definitely, but I also want to go to that UConn Seton Hall game. Dan Hurley, you still the best coach? Because your Huskies are looking like they might not make the tournament.
And of course, that Auburn-Bama game was everything we wanted it, and everything we got it. We saw the game, and it was exciting. It was full of energy, and yeah.
Auburn proving its dominance over its in-state rival. Slow starts have plagued the Orange all season. You go back to Stanford just a few weeks ago on the West Coast. The Cuse go down 17-0. Not quite that bad today, but still not good, guys. Syracuse goes down again early in this game. The first 3 minutes, really, neither side can score. And then as soon as UNC, or the Orange get going, I should say, UNC strikes back on the other end. Syracuse just hasn't been able to build consistency in the opening moments.
Yeah, it's been really difficult to watch, and mainly because they don't do the little things correctly. Syracuse only wants to play one side of the ball, and that's offense. So, Sydney, when Syracuse does get their shots to go, they don't get back on defense, or there's always a defensive breakdown. And like you talked about earlier in the show, people thought this would actually change today because Adrian Autry,
he was mad.
He was really mad, and let's be honest, he kind of dialed it back the next day, but he called out his players for their effort on defense. But again, the question is, does that message resonate? And the answer was no.
And even that too, like the small, soft skills of just dribbling properly, getting and connecting with your players and getting and connecting with your teammates, it just wasn't happening. And those small things really add up.
Now, it's certainly been an issue all season long, but I wonder why today. You see J.J. Starling, just 2 points in the first half. He actually gets subbed out of the game. I mean, look, these are some of your biggest producers. Jaquan Carlos, silent as well. More turnovers than he had points. And this was a guy that you brought in to be your assist guy. J.J. Starling spent a lot of that first half on the bench, and of course he gets going in the second half, but it doesn't really matter because SU has to play from behind.
Yeah, and I think Jaquan Carlos' numbers kind of simulate what this season has become, because as you talked about, the whole reason Syracuse got him from Hofstra was that he was that floor general. A lot of the criticism against Judah Mintz last year was doesn't move the basketball. Well, Jaquan Carlos is not doing much of movement
tries,
either.
but it's not effective.
It's not working, and
Yeah,
he certainly
really
can't score like Judah Mintz either.
Right, certainly it's been an issue. The Orange trying to spread the ball out as much as possible, but you see once again, Kyle Cuff, another guy, the guy we talked about a little bit earlier that you expect to be your energizer off the bench, he has no points either. And one of the reasons why, when Syracuse does get going, they can't seem to capitalize on these runs. Guys, I know we mentioned this stat already, but the game was tied 6 times today, and the Orange don't come away with the lead in any of those instances. UNC gets the first bucket. It's a huge issue because Syracuse is never playing from in front, so their guys can't get confident.
Yeah, definitely, and kind of the main reason for that is they don't do the little things correctly, right? Syracuse has had a lot of chances in this game to grab momentum, whether it be J.J. Starling in that second half, having a pretty good look at a transition three-pointer. Right. He doesn't hit it, and then R.J. Davis comes down and gets that lucky bounce three-pointer, and all of a sudden it's an 8-point game, and you feel like you're back at square one. It's just those runs and plays like that where you realize how Syracuse has not been able to capitalize, and that's why they're losing some of these games.
Yeah, and UNC made a fair amount of turnovers, 4 in the first half, 5 in the second half, and SU just couldn't capitalize off of those points. And as well, maybe it's a little bit of desperation potentially when they get those balls and maybe they have a chance for a fast break. It's that desperation, that rushingness that maybe sometimes you got to take a step back, settle a little bit, figure out where your feet are and figure out where your teammates are to actually make the most of every possession rather than just passing it over and turning the ball over again.
And you see on that screen right there, the only time where Syracuse has been limiting its opponents after it goes on a big-time run against Cal. And that's the only game that they really won handedly and looked good in. I mean, you look at North Carolina, of course, a loss. Miami, a loss. Boston College, triple overtime. Duke and Stanford, both losses. So teams have been capitalizing on Syracuse's mistakes and seemingly unwillingness to kind of put the foot on the gas pedal and say, we're going to take this game over. Maybe it's lack of depth. Maybe it's something else. Look at the rest of the schedule and what they've done in the ACC, and there are opportunities. SMU has joined the conference seemingly very, very well. Every other team, though, with a losing record in conference.
Certainly a lot of opportunities, but Pitt, they played earlier this year. That was a loss. Really, I mean, Virginia, that could be a win. There are a lot of chances at victories, but
the wheels have really fallen off for Pitt, though. I mean, that's a team struggling to about as much as you possibly can. A lot of people thought Pitt was the 3rd best team in the conference.
I mean, they were for a time, but...
I mean, the whole moral of the story is when are these messages and these moments and these lessons from all these losses actually going to stick? I mean, as you can see, there's only 5 games left in the regular season. There's times running out to actually prove that you can put into implementation what your coach and what your fans and what everybody has been saying about your team and your performance. And I don't know if Syracuse is ever going to show that they can listen and do it.
Seemingly... that time has passed. I mean, the Orange are struggling to pick up wins, and like you said, 5 games left in the season, and there isn't much left to play for at this point. It seems like the eyes of the media and the team and even maybe the coaching staff kind of moving forward to next year with the way that this season has gone. We're going to take another break here on Orange Press Pass. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the ACC standings, and Sydney and Rahill going to give their final takes as we finish things up.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it?
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got? Or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back into our CitrusTV studios. Luke Burgess joined alongside Sydney Chan, Rahill, Jaiswal, breaking down Syracuse's 88-82 loss to UNC inside the Dome. Let's take a look at the ACC standings. Syracuse, unfortunately, not on the first page of these standings, guys. And you see UNC slowly climbing up, a big win today, but they've got to continue to go on a run if they want a chance at March.
Yeah, definitely. They're sitting right now what would be a 7 seed in the ACC tournament, so you don't have to play in that first round. Potentially get, you be the higher seed in the second round. Maybe you can make some noise there, but here's Syracuse, the last team in the ACC tournament.
I mean, yeah, we needed 2 pages to even show where Syracuse was at. Number 15, like you said, Rahill, always on the very exterior of making the tournament. I mean, after this last performance, after their loss to Miami, I don't really know if it's looking good.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Syracuse should still be in the ACC tournament just because if you look at where everything is at, NC State, Boston College, and Miami, I think are just a little too far down to catch. That Syracuse triple overtime win against Boston College was huge.
Right.
Had they lost that game,
might end up being the difference.
That might end up being the difference. Had they lost that game, then it might have been
really
a lot different. But overall, I still expect Syracuse to be in the ACC tournament. But again, that's not really an achievement for a program that prides itself on basketball like Syracuse.
Well, another game and another loss for the Orange. That means that our analysts are fired up. They're ready to sound off in our final take.
All right, well, yeah, new segment for, Orange Press Pass.
Apologies are needed from everybody in this program, and I want them now. After every single game, if Syracuse loses, head coach Adrian Austrie should go up to that podium and say, I apologize for what we are doing to this program. This team is a national disgrace to the entirety of Syracuse basketball. Potentially your worst season since the 60s before Jim Boeheim got here, especially coming off a year last year where you actually looked relatively respectable. You had a good recruiting class. Yes, you have one for next year, but head coach Adrian Austrie needs to come out there like he did against that game, in that game against Wake Forest, and say, I would like to apologize to the university. It should have happened after Miami. I'm glad he called out the team because that performance they put out there was absolutely disgusting. And while today was a little better, it was absolutely horrible once again. Adrian Austrie should be apologizing, and every single one of those players should be ashamed to show their faces on campus. If you see them on campus, don't say hi to them. Don't say what's up. They deserve to be treated like every other student.
And let's call out somebody else, Eddie Lampkin. I mean, you did great today, but where have you been all season? 26 points, career high in points, the best scorer on the SU, best scorer of the game. I mean, usually when we're talking about him, we're talking about his behind the back passes, his goggle celebration, those classic things. But I mean, today he really stepped up. He played like a true center. He made those buckets when we needed him, and we need this more.
Let's take a look at the next Orange Press Pass for the Cuse. It's on Tuesday, not Wednesday, against Pittsburgh. The Orange back in action on the road in the 4-1-2 and certainly in need of a win.
Definitely, and Syracuse played relatively well in that game against Pitt last time. We'll see if they can come out with a victory.
I mean, it was close, so it should be a good game.
Orange Press Pass on the air at 11 o'clock for that game. I want to say thanks so much to our entire producing crew. A fantastic show. What a day. Syracuse men's and women's lacrosse both playing games, a whole ton of coverage. We're wrapping it up right here on Orange Press Pass. For my co-hosts, Sydney Chan, Rahill, Jaiswal, I'm Luke Burgess saying have a good night.